Jackie Lovejoy, and I'm here in town with two of our great entrepreneurs, and we've noticed in the marketplace there's a lot of people who don't want to go into business for themselves because they're thinking of their business 10 years down the road. So I'm with Jermo, who runs Hey Honey and does it full time and is wildly successful. And of course, Michelle Plucinsky with the Glass Academy, who's hosting us today. So we're just going to talk about how you start, how you factor in your suppliers, your competitors who can be your companions if they offer something you don't. So we're gonna go from there. So Michelle, you started in this space about 2005?
Yeah, 2004, and we moved in. It was a warehouse, and we had to adapt the space to exactly what we needed. So time and experience, it would change over the years, but we found a good rhythm.
Oh, it's become a great gallery.
Thank you.
Oh no, it really, I saw a lot of it. And Jay, you started in 2012 after a variety of banking and printing and other endeavors.
I did. Actually, I got started, I went, kind of a sad note, I went bankrupt and I had nothing. And I moved into my grandmother's basement from Chicago. I worked for a bank for about a year, and then I visited a cousin who was a beekeeper, and he suggested to me that I sell for him and learn the trade. And I guess long story short, it just happened really, really quickly. I got into one market, and I developed a customer base within, I don't know, about 2 hours, and it ramped up. It ramped up. One market became 2, and then 5, and then it was half my year.
Yeah, and that baking job, you weren't talking to enough people, so when you did honey, it exploded for you.
It was like the banking one was like, I hesitate to tell people that because it was about 2 years out of my life. But before that, when I was selling print, it was all customer engagement, but it was all over the phone. It wasn't in person. And the problem I had with selling for a company is that you have a go-between with your boss. Like you have to approve the sales with your boss, and you have to approve timelines and turnarounds with a boss. And when I had my own thing, it wasn't like that at all. It was just I have an offering. I didn't have to push. People came to me, they purchased, and then they were going to come back. It was a depletable resource.
And you could adapt on the fly. Oh, that jar there seems to be selling really well. Let me sell more of those.
Exactly.
Or give a 2 for 1 or whatever the deal was.
Exactly.
You didn't have to go.
There's no rules.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you work for somebody, there's always rules. And like when you have your own thing, I don't like them.
I know.
I don't like them. That worked for me, just because people would come up. The nice thing about dealing direct with customers is you kind of become like a free therapist, kind of.
That's funny too.
It is because people talk to you and people buy from the people they like.
Yeah.
You know, and they want to engage somebody who's not biased. If you want this thing I have, great. If you don't, come back later. But we can be us. We can talk. And
when I see you at market, you engage with the people. I want to talk to you. I want to say hello every week when I come by, versus the other vendor that might sell honey and just is reading a book, not engaged, right? So,
I think that, at least for me, when everybody who I interact with has their own business, and like I come here, and you have space, you have a staff, you have people that you work with, you have supply chains, and I'm a little more self-contained and small and mobile. And I think when I was in printing, the idea of working for myself was foreign because I saw all these people with big giant companies, and I didn't know that it's so hard to make that leap. How do you become this big thing? And really, I think a lot of people suffer from that. What you got to figure out is you don't make that big leap. You have to find, and you have to find something.
It's like having a baby to a teenager, right?
Yeah. And you have to find something that you can stay engaged with.
Yeah.
So I don't like the conversation around passion. Passion means different things to different people. It's more of a, can you do this thing? Can you get behind it? And can you keep coming back to it? If you keep coming back to it, it's going to have longevity. Because if you're not engaged with it, projects fall off the wayside.
There's nothing worse than waiting for a snow day when you're 40.
Right.
You know, that's
funny.
right.
Is that a thing?
Oh, that's my thing. So if you can get up and go and embody what you do, that's half the battle. And then I think you have an unusual stance because all of a sudden you were talking to people and they said, well, you're this successful for 6 months of the year. Why don't you just move markets? And you turned it into a full-time business.
This is the thing. It's like when you
don't conceive of a 10-year-old child. Thank God we don't have to carry them. But, right, I mean.
Like when I had so many years working for organizations that you work in kind of a bubble. And when I was out in the market, I was just engaging people, was having a good time. It wasn't real, it's not how I perceived work. It was, people came, they wanted a particular thing, they paid for it, and they left and came back later. But at the end of the year, when markets were over, I'd done it for 6 years before somebody said, you can just go and do shows inside in other places.
That's funny.
Well, no, and after 6 years, it didn't occur to me.
Because we have an employee mindset.
Yeah.
We go to school, we go to high school, we go to college. It teaches you how to be a worker. It doesn't teach you to be an entrepreneur. There's guts and know-how and grit and curiosity you have to come to the table with. And if you're not willing to take those things and be like, how can I do this better? Or who could I ask? Or who can assist me? I would say Jackie's been instrumental in pulling people together to be like, I know someone who has that answer, or go over here, or try this. And another thing as an entrepreneur, like I'm not scared of failure because I learn from every failure. It's hard. I mean, we are gonna make our own living, and then my living depends on where I'm adventurous, right? But once you give it a go, okay, I learned from this, I can build upon it and build upon it. So 6 years in, you learn to go to an indoor
Let me
market.
ask you something. Have you ever had something that, like, at the front you thought it was a failure, but somebody came to you and said, well, why don't you just bundle these items that you think are losses and sell them as like a
kit,
a mismatch kit?
Yeah.
And like you didn't think of it, and somebody just gives you an idea, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can totally turn it around.
I think being a front-facing first person is important for your job. So you sell food items. We don't really bundle with what we do, but definitely.
I'm just using it as an example.
I'm saying definitely listening to our customers, because we've had them say, "Oh, have you ever thought about this?" And it's like, no, but I will. The bosom chiller at Renaissance. It's our hottest seller, right? It's a 7-weekend fair that we do, and we've got a product niche, and people come back year after year for it. So
you need the right bra.
Yes, you do. The right outfit.
But that speaks to a great idea, because everyone thinks they're going to launch a 10-year-old company, and you're not. You're going to get started, and you're going to want to be engaged, and you keep going. And I think Jay's done a great thing, because if somebody comes in with a specific allergy and they want a Parisian flower honey, well, Jay can get it for them, and it becomes a premium product. I think that's a great way to think outside the box as well.
Yeah, I think especially with young people, I sell at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. I've sold in Dearborn, and I get a lot of students. And students always talk to you about their aspirations, where they think they're going to be. And you, like an older person, they always think that you're being negative. I'm like, I'm not being negative, but life is going to happen to you. Yeah. This idea that you're going to do exactly what you think, you're not going to have a boss you don't like, you're not going to move into a place where you can't afford the rent. Like, these things happen and they change your direction. So that's why I say I think finding something that you want to keep coming back to do is way more important, it comes way before whatever it is being a big company. It's like that you have to start at that thing that you go and do you want to go and do all the time for it to grow to that thing.
Younger people that instant success, if they really look on Instagram or wherever they're looking and scroll back, they'll see it started 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but suddenly it came.
All of a sudden, the lipstick is in Macy's. All of a sudden, she's been doing it for 10 years at Market and other shelf-stable kind of places. Yeah,
you learn all those trials and tribulations, so you do become that overnight success one day, 10 years into it.
That's kind of the lie about social media is people look at these things and they're like, they flip on the camera and in a week they have $1 million, and it's not like that. For 99.9% of builders.
And you wouldn't be ready emotionally for it if it wasn't
that
way.
No
you need
way.
to learn how to budget and plan and meet revenue goals, all of those
And
things. Packaging.
select suppliers, select
Yeah.
ones who, and like, this is the other thing that I think, unfortunately, young people miss, is the value of building trust with the people you work with. That takes time. And it's way more important than the product. So when you have a hiccup in your supply chain, whatever it is, if you're offering a thing, not a service, to be able to go to your rep or your person who's supplying you with whatever and say, I have this problem, how can you help me fix it? Like, that supersedes what any item costs. So
That's amazing, because that's one of those things. I know you've been importing and exporting and doing. That's the other thing, is other markets that'll keep you afloat when times maybe are not so flush here. And I always think, talk about a pivot, and not everyone uses that word, let's pivot. But what did I do? I was one of the first people to line up and buy the little COVID paperweight, and it's a little molecule. And Michelle and her family came up with this, and we were all in the same boat together. And I'm like, that's all
And
it took.
that goes to trying lots of ideas. Try this idea, try this idea. Ooh, people are liking this one. I'm a creator. I manufacture things with my hands. Just because I think it's a good idea doesn't mean it is, right?
I'm still mad I didn't buy your wall hanging at Sculpture Fest. I'm like, Doug got that. I should have paid for it because it looked great. Yeah,
Thank you.
because you are a maker.
Yeah.
You have great vision.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you
do.
test things, right?
Yeah.
You know, like we made these pumpkins. I never thought that'd be a big thing. 25 years later, we're like leaders in the industry because we took a gamble and tried something different, right? But I think the most important thing was, and I certainly didn't learn it at art school, is to trust your customer base and listen to the people around you, right? I think that's hard. I'm going to be independent. I'm going to do all these things, but then you'll get humbled real quick when there's no income, or you know, you're dying on the vine. You're trying to sell something blue and everyone wanted green. That's it.
That's it. And Jay talks about, he started his own website. Okay, who can I
it's
talk?
so easy now.
Yeah,
So
well,
easy.
back
we
when.
talk about this a lot, that I think another thing first timers run into is this idea that you got to do everything, otherwise you're
Yeah,
not
good point.
authentic. Total nonsense.
Yeah.
And again, to people watching, it might be like, oh, well, that's obvious. There's lots of people it's not obvious to.
Yeah, I agree.
I had to have someone build it. I had to have somebody else curate the mailing list. I have somebody else launch it. I have somebody
in the
else help me with my
beginning,
labels.
You don't have the funds.
There's
so you're
only
like,
one
I
of
got to
you.
do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And then once you start building some equity, you're like, okay, I'm not good at that. Let's pass that off to someone who's brilliant at it.
Yeah, and
So,
can do it way faster.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it would take me forever.
And then you find, then you,
I'm like, oh, yeah.
they're always, this is the thing, when somebody hasn't started and you start talking about things like you're trading off dollars for time, that's like another language. But once you start making your thing and start offering your thing and people pay for it, which, you know, you got to keep testing, they will.
Old speakers used to talk about this all the time. Is your time is worth money.
Yeah,
And what are you
it
good
is.
at? Keep doing what you're doing. Hire what you can out. But I think we are almost out of time. So I'd love to thank WDHT for coming on out and interviewing our wonderful entrepreneurs. We are doing something called Startup Blueprints. So if you're starting your own business, this is a great place to start. Look for our resources, utilize your local networks, utilize your chambers, your business associations, because they have the legs to get you going. They've been where you've been. So with that, I'd love to thank both of our guests.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No
and
problem.
come on back to take a class, see the gallery. And I have to tell you, I'm a honey, when you get sick, it's a natural antibiotic. I take honey.
Come and visit me all over Southeast Michigan.
Okay, have a great day. Thanks so much.